You're atheist?
Yeah.
I can prove God exists in 2 minutes.
Yeah,
2 minutes,
sure.
come, 2 minutes. Would you agree that your necklace here was made by somebody?
Yeah.
Did you go and see the person who made it?
No.
I kind of wonder what would happen if the guy answered yes. Would the first guy go, well, then I can't prove it?
Good, but you do accept that it's designed. Why? Because you use your rationality, logic, and your faculties, your 5 senses to look and hold and say somebody made this.
Yeah.
Now, my question is the following. Is your kidney more complex in design or this chain?
I guess I say the kidney.
Is your kidney is made out of DNA. That's your genetic makeup.
Yeah.
A single strand of DNA has more information in it than they say maybe all the books on earth.
Yeah.
So then a book has information. Information requires intelligence. DNA has information. Information requires intelligence.
Yeah.
So the question is, forget your kidney. There are billions of species and they all have DNA.
Yeah.
So the question is, who created them all? I'm saying that intelligent source has to be the creator.
This really reminds me that do you have a fish tank story? If you know, you know. But jokes aside, this is basically a version of the classic watchmaker argument. If something relatively complex, like a watch or in this case a necklace, requires a designer, surely something far more complex, like the human body, must require one too. Except there's a pretty major problem here. We know that the necklace was designed not because it is relatively complex. We know it was designed because we have enormous independent evidence that necklaces are artifacts made by humans. We've literally seen people make jewelry. We know the materials, the tools, and the process. Another point is that complexity by itself does not mean intelligent design. When it comes to biological organisms, we actually have a mechanism capable of producing enormous complexity without somebody consciously designing every individual feature. That is evolution through mutation, inheritance, and natural selection. And importantly, evolution isn't just an alternative explanation we invented. We can actually watch it happen. We observe mutations, inheritance, and natural selection in nature, and we have reproduced evolutionary change in controlled experiments. So on one side, we have a proposed intelligent designer. On the other, we have a mechanism that we can literally observe operating. Then he says, your kidney is made out of DNA. Well, no, your kidney is made out of cells and tissues. Those cells contain DNA. That's quite different. But then we get to another part of his argument. A book has information. Information requires intelligence. DNA has information. Therefore, DNA requires intelligence. But he is using the word information in two different ways. A book contains semantic information. Somebody consciously had thoughts and intentionally wrote them down. DNA contains genetic information, sequences that are inherited and influence how organisms develop and function. Calling both of those things information does not mean they must have originated in exactly the same way. Information requires intelligence isn't some established scientific law. That's actually the premise he needs to prove. Why must biological information come from intelligence? That's the entire question. But there's an even more fundamental problem here. You said you are going to prove that God exists. And to actually prove something, your conclusion has to logically follow from what you've established. Even if I gave you the entire analogy and agreed that biological complexity looks designed, at best that's an argument or evidence in favor of a designer, not proof. And even if I gave you that too and said, fine, DNA came from some intelligence, you still haven't proven God. You would still have to show that this intelligence is supernatural, all-powerful, all-knowing, and so on. And just to be clear, none of this proves that God doesn't exist either. Maybe God exists, that's a separate question. But if you're going to say you have proven something, you actually have to prove it. And this argument simply doesn't get you from a necklace to God.